Okay, this is a series of pictures that cover the kodagosh, or the basic wrist lock, which is a fundamental technique that is taught in virtually every single martial art I have encountered, whether it be a Filipino martial art, a Japanese martial art, or even a martial art that originates out of China or any other country, Russia, France, whatever. It don't really matter. The point is that this technique is really misunderstood for a long time. You have to go through many years of trying to understand, and it has many of the 10 principles involved in it that need to be worked in conjunction at the same time. So we'll start out with the first image where you can actually see me applying this technique. I'm on the right in the black gi, and that would be Mr. Garvin to my left, who is one of my Yudansha at this time. If you notice, I'm applying this, and there's a lot of things that you may not realize that's happening at this moment, okay? Most people seem to think that you're just actually grabbing the hand, turning the wrist outward, and they fall down because it hurts. Well, I mean, in some certain level, that's true. But there's a lot of principles involved in this to make it really effective. Have you ever noticed when you watch somebody who's been training for a really long time, when they actually apply the technique, it looks easy, and then you try to do it, you watch them do it, then you get it and you try to do it, and you can't make it work? And it's because all the little things that they're actually doing, you don't see, don't recognize, don't understand, because the mechanics behind it are foreign to you. Alright, so I have a series of images that's going to follow this to try to explain some of that, to put some of that into perspective and the way I kind of see things that you may not. Okay, the first image that comes up after this, I've actually taken 3 circles and drawn them around myself and Mr. Garvin. I tried to find the center of those 3 circles, which actually is closer to my center of gravity, if you notice, than his. Each one of those are in 3 different locations. One is around our feet, around our hips, and around our head. Because if you break the body down, if you want to use the fulcrum lever-based principles, there's a pivot point everywhere, the weight is distributed to some place, and it has to be disrupted or uprooted or moved, and then has to be taken off balance in conjunction with the quadrants and direction of force that you want to apply a certain effect to. So, outside of that, if you look at each one of those, the next image, I've actually taken 3 triangles, one of which is at my foot, or my feet, in between my feet, where I've drawn and connected my feet, and then brought it to a point. Another is at my hips, same type of triangle, same direction, and another one is at my shoulders, which, you know, I'm not an expert with Photoshop, but that's actually the top triangle is running through my face to my opposite shoulder. If I take a line and extend them out from the direction of those actual triangles, it comes to a point to the outside of myself and Mr. Garvin. If you look at his hand, the way I'm cranking his hand, it's actually, his fingers are actually cranked out and pointed towards the direction or the line that runs out of all of my centers there. Okay, that's pretty important. Also, if you notice the line that was drawn in the center of the circles, if you separated myself and Mr. Garvin, we were separated from one another. Okay? Each one of us would have our own circles in the same locations. When we blend together, I take up the center of that circle, not him. I actually steal his center and I become the center, which makes me be able to manipulate him. The direction of force is based off of the direction of the shoulders, or the direction that I'm moving. I'll move on to the next image. I'll take the same triangles, the blue triangles that you see, and I extend those out from his feet, his hips, and his shoulders. If you notice that they are not a, I forget my terminology, but if you notice the triangle is a little bit different. I want to say it's not even, you know, the points are a little bit different. And really, realistically, I've actually altered the triangles on him, or the direction, to actually reflect the center of mine. So now his body is pointed in that direction. You talk about the circle, the triangle, and the square that you hear more, hey, you're able to speak of. Well, look here. I mean, you can see it at work. Move on to the next image. Centrifugal force has to be applied with footwork, movement, maintaining my center, altering his center, and circular, rotational inertia. So once I apply this direction of force, then I'm going to step away. I'm going to move to the outside. The next image, you look at my gaze, what I'm looking at, and Brandon's, or Mr. Garvin's gaze. If you notice where I'm looking at, I'm actually looking out towards the center of my triangles, and he is actually looking towards the center of his. He can't help it. And then once I want to apply this, wherever his fingers point to is where his shoulders will actually end up and land on the ground, which is something that I could use to my aid. So if I decide to throw somebody down, whether it be, you know, into something on the ground, an object, a car door, windshield, or, you know, I'm not saying you'd have to do that, but I'm just saying I can actually control that once I have robbed you of your balance, uprooted you, and used the 10 principles that you see in the principles of effective control. So I'll go ahead and input a video in here now and explain some of this so you can understand it, and I'll animate the image here so you can actually see it at work. I'd recommend that you move forward and back up to the different locations of this video to see how this works. I hope this helps, and I hope it brings some insight to you where you have an epiphany now. You can actually apply this and try it and look at each one of these things, and it's applicable in all of your techniques too. As for the quadrants, I'm not going to explain that much in here because it actually has to do with reverse quadrants, which is far too advanced to talk about in a video. Maybe after you understand the initial quadrants, you'll be able to understand this. Alright, good luck.
You're actually going to see two videos, one of which is a video that you saw in the original slide, or the last slide that you just viewed, the basic wrist lock. It's a black and white video. You actually see me step in, take the hand, point it to the outside. If you pay close attention and think about the location of the shoulders of both individuals involved, myself and the UK, you'll notice that the triangles that we spoke of are in play. You also notice that I actually move in towards the center once I have control of the hand, and I blend and I become the actual center. Once that happens, I then push the arm in. The elbow goes against the hip. That's actually taking the play away, and it's immobilizing the arm so that the pressure will be felt in the most profound way within the wrist itself. And then I apply the technique, angle and direction of force, and then go down. The other technique is a variation of that. It's a variation of the basic wrist lock. You can use this for disarming weapons, stick a knife, or anything else of that nature. I'm going to step in, use my footwork to the outside, and when I do that, I'm actually circling and placing a great deal of torque, or I'm twisting the arm to the point that it can no longer take anymore, and it tightens everything out. My other hand, where I get myself in position, then shoots across over the shoulder, and I actually come in contact with the shoulder because you need to have at least 3 points of contact. You have the wrist, the shoulder, and then the face itself. So if you take that arm, if you take your partner UK, and you actually stretch their arm out like that to the point to where it can no longer be stretched, and then you take your other hand and you push their chin, make them look away in the opposite direction. You take their gaze away from them, because I talked about the gaze before. They will fall because your eyes are very important. Try to walk down a set of steps with a box, something large enough where you can't see your feet. It's nearly impossible. If you go down, you don't even look at the steps. You don't think you do. You don't think you realize on your actual eyesight. But as soon as you have something that blocks your view, you can't do it. You got to feel. So taking the gaze away actually helps as well. So I hope some of this helps, and actually you look at some of the circles, the blending, the moving in from the center of the circle, and apply these as well to your techniques. Try them both and experiment.